So I've been making a lot of composition videos this past few weeks, and today I'm going to be covering mixing and mastering, and I'm going to give you some tips that will help you improve or aid your mixing and mastering. And this video is brought to you in part by Landr. So they are a sponsor of this video, and we're going to talk about more of Landr later on in the video. So the first tip I have for you is you want to create buses and groups. This really helps you like condense certain tracks, like a number of tracks, into like one channel, and then you can mix them that way in that kind of situation. So what I want to start with in this track is I want to start with my drums, because that's usually what I do, and that's something that is actually a second tip that I can give you, is also start with your drums. Start working on your drums before you go to other sounds and everything else that you have in your track, because your drums are the loudest in your music, and most songs do have drums. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to create groups, like a group of drums, and then we're going to just start mixing the drums. So as I play back the track,
this is me.
I can actually see which ones are the drums and which ones are not. So what I can do is I can just select some of these, and I can move them. Like I can move them to the right like that. So this is a little bit tedious, but it does the trick. So then I can just move stuff over. So when it comes to the drums, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select everything except the kick. That's just my technique. I'll just keep the kick out of this drum group because I want the kick to be on its own. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select everything like that. So all these are my drums, and I'm going to make sure. Okay, so this is actually not a drum. So it was good for me to check whether it was a drum or not. And this pluck also is not a drum, so it's good to check. And then I'm just gonna bring in like an empty track, like this track here. I'm just gonna bring it next to these drums, and then I'm gonna select all of these, and then I'm gonna right click and go to track routing and create a sub mix. And then I'm just gonna come here and I'm gonna say drums like that, and you see here it's gonna create drums. So if I play it back,
this is me.
And I muted everything except the kick and all the other instruments. So this is pretty cool. So what I like to do when it comes to like everything else that's not the kick and all the other sounds is I like to first EQ and take out all the low end frequencies that are not really important, like everything most certainly below 100 to 50 hertz. So I usually go here on this presets and I just put on like this 20 plus 18 kilohertz cut, and then I just cut maybe around 100 hertz like this.
This is me.
Because if you look at the spectrum here, you can tell that there's frequency information on the low end. So this helps us create space, just so that the kick and the bass can have some room, because we don't want our other drum sounds to have all that kind of sounds. But it's up to you, like how far you want to do this high pass cutting. So maybe somewhere in between is okay. Maybe somewhere around 80 hertz is okay. You just have to play it by ear, see what works for you.
This is me. You want to know why
I think somewhere around there is okay.
It's because I stole a suit in Kansas City and I was in jail.
Yeah, I think somewhere around there is okay. And what you can do if you want, you can even mute everything else, just so that you can listen to like all these other sounds. So I can mute everything, and I can even mute the kick, so I can just hear just these drums. So I don't want to make these drums super thin, so if I overdo this, it's now taking out a lot of all that mid-range information. So around 100 is okay. So you hear that there's a gong right there. So that's why I'm not really cutting like all the way to like 100 hertz. So I'm just gonna drop it down till like around 80 hertz. I think that's a good enough place. So I'm leaving all this space for the bass and the kick to come in. So if I play the kick is not fighting with, it could be toms, you could have toms in your track, or you could have other sounds that have low end information. Now I've created this group. What I can do next is make sure that my drums are sitting where I want them to sit so I can play them back and then I start mixing. So what I like to do is I like to mute everything. So the kick is my first sound. So I can start with this sound right here. I can drop this down. I can drop my kick a little bit and make sure that my audio output is a little bit louder in my headphones on my audio interface. Okay, that rim is a little bit too loud. I'm gonna drop it down a little bit. I'm gonna drop that hat down, and I think I'm gonna pan this hat to the left. And I have another rim right there. And I have this sound that just played right there. I think I'm gonna drop that sound down and move on to the next. And I'm gonna drop this sound down as well, this open hat. And I have this cymbal right here, and I have all these other sounds here, so I can put them on. I'm gonna pan this one to the right and that one to the left. There's another sound right here that I can see super loud, so I can drop my cymbals down. I like to keep my cymbals super soft and not too loud because they can be really jarring to the ear. I'm gonna drop that gong sound. Okay, I like this sound here and it sounds good. So I think my drums are at a good place. One thing I like to do is I like to add maybe a transient processor just to add some energy to my drums if you want to. So you can use a transient processor to add some energy or take out a lot of that energy. So let me go ahead and put that in right now. So I can raise the attack. And if you want, you can even turn down the release. I think I like how that's sounding with the release down a little bit. And I can add a little bit of some drive into it. Like maybe around 15%. Let's try a little bit more, 30%. Let's do a little bit more. Okay, I think that sounds good. And now we can move on to the other sounds, which are the other sounds that we are working on. So we are still just creating buses and making sure that we create space in the whole track. So this is still the first two tips. This is still how I start and approach a mix. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unmute these sounds.
Stole myself out of every good job since high school, and I never got anywhere. You blew me so full out of.
So I'm noticing that all these sounds are not really bass sounds. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna group them. So I'm gonna pick another empty mixer track and I'm just gonna put it over the log drum like that. And then I'm gonna send everything. I'm gonna select all of it like that, and then I'm gonna route. Create a submix, and I'm just gonna say synth like that.
This is me.
And again, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna EQ. Okay, that's the wrong EQ. I'm just gonna replace that. I'm gonna EQ the low end out.
This is me. You wanna know why I had no address for 3 months? It's because I stole a suit in Kansas City. never got anywhere.
So I think that actually sounds good. So you can literally hear that there was a lot of information, like if I mute all my drums
This is me.
and I turn this
I
off.
want to know why I had no address for 3 months.
Okay, so that's a bass sound. So I'm gonna take this out and I'm gonna reroute it to I'm gonna put this to my master, and then I'm gonna take this out of this group and make sure that it's out, that first sound right there.
This is me.
You can see there's a lot of low end information there, so I'm just gonna cut that out as much as
This is
possible.
me. You want to know why I had no address for 3 months?
And what I can do, if you want, if you have, let's say, some stereo widening, you can add some stereo widening. If you want, you can add some EQ if you want, and maybe do some touch ups to that sound. Like I can add another
I want to
EQ,
know why I had no address for 3 months.
and maybe I can take off some of
I
the
stole a suit
low
in
mids
Kansas City, and I was in jail.
and the bass sounds, and raise some of the high
Stole
mids.
myself out of every good job since high school, and I never got anywhere.
And take away some of the high end just like that a little bit, so that my percussion sounds and my cymbals and all those other things can really shine, so that the synths are not too bright, because I want my synths to be kind of dark in that kind of situation. So let me bring back the drums.
This is me. You want to know why I had no address for 3 months?
Okay, I think that sounds good. So what I'm gonna do now is then I can work on my levels of all of these sounds to make sure that they're in the right place.
This is me. You want to know why I had no address for 3 months? It's because I
Okay, so
stole
I'm
a suit
gonna
in
take some of
Kansas
these
City,
down.
and I was in jail. I stole myself out of every good job since high school, and I never got anywhere. Because you blew me so full.
I think that's good. So when it comes to this sound right here, I want it to bounce a little. So I'm gonna add my duck preset. You can download that in the link down below if you want to. I've created a lot of frequency space, and I started with my drums, and then I also created some groups in the track. So those are the 3 tips that I want you to apply to your mixing when you start mixing, before you even start leveling. That's kind of what you want to do. That's kind of a formula that I do with all my mixes, and then I can move on to adding other sounds like the basses and everything else. So now everything can come in.
This is me. You want to know why I had no address for 3 months?
So I can see this bass sound here that's on this track, this channel that says Lucky Pluck, is super dominant through the whole track. So I'm gonna drop all these other ones a little bit down low like that. And all these other sounds, I know that these are the sounds that are going to be like accompanying that bass sound.
This is me. You want to know why I had no address for 3 months? It's because I stole a suit in Kansas City, and I was in jail.
And I'm gonna drop these vocals down a little bit.
This is me. You want to know why I had no address for 3 months? It's because I stole a suit in Kansas City.
So what I can do is I can go into my project, and then I can check if everything is playing.
Since high school, and I never got anywhere. Because you blew me so full out of there. I can never stand taking orders from anybody. That's whose fault it is.
So with that log drum, I'm gonna make sure I cut out a lot of those subs, because I just want a little bit of the attack. So I'm gonna cut off like around maybe 60 hertz is okay.
Since high school, and I never got anywhere. Because you blew me so full out.
To give room for this other bass sound that we have here by Lucky Pluck.
Since high school, and I never got anywhere. Because you blew me so full out of there.
And when you find yourself to be mixing a track that has multiple basses like this, one thing you can do is you can play around with frequencies and assign frequency spaces, so that each of these basses like they live and they focus in on that one frequency the most. And you can even like pan them slightly, not over 20% like of a pan to the right or to the left, just to add a little bit of room and to kind of spread your basses out. If you have a track that has kind of multiple basses like this track here, I know I put in multiple basses, but that's a technique that I also do. So sometimes what you want to do is you might just want to, pan one to the right and pan one slightly to the left, but not too much.
It's high school, and I never got anywhere.
I think I'm gonna leave this main one in the middle here. So that's something that you want to know as well, like what's going to be your main bass sound and what's going to be kind of your additional basses. So those ones have to be maybe a dB or 2 dB or even 3 dB lower than your main bass, which is the one that when it comes out, it really brings in that bass energy that, gets you excited, like, okay, the bass is here. Everything else is just accompanying that bass. So it's all about priority when you're mixing. Like, what are you prioritizing to be louder? What are you prioritizing to be like brighter or that kind of thing? Something else that's on this track is you can see that I also have a vocal on this track. So one thing I like to do when it comes to vocals like these on my deep house songs is I don't like to process them too much. This vocal just basically has like a pitch shifter, so I can just change the sound a little bit, and I took off a lot of the low frequencies and I sent it to like a reverb and delay send. That's all I did, and I just dropped it down to a place where I felt like it's super comfortable, because the vocal is just like another instrument. It's accompanying everything else. It's not really something I want up front like an original vocal where someone actually sang, because this is not a vocal beat. This is a deep house track. The vocal is just there to add an aesthetic and add deepness to the track. So it's not really accompanying the track in the form of where it's supposed to be up front. That's why it's super deep, it's super reverby, and with a lot of delay. So that's why I keep it like right in the back of the track. Like if I play it, you can hear that it's all the way in the back.
I stole myself out of every good job since high school, and I never got anywhere.
And I think it sounds okay like that. And if you want to, you can even like take down some of the high frequencies. If you really want to make a vocal super dark in the mix, you can take out a lot of the high frequencies like that.
It's high school, and I never got anywhere. You blew me so full out there, I can never stand taking orders from anybody.
Just like that. But since this vocal is kind of low, I chose to leave the high frequencies in there because I wanted to also just be a little bit bright, because the vocal itself is not over bright because I lowered it. It's not too upfront.
I stole myself out of every good job since high school.
Let me drop it a little bit more. Because what I want people to do when they're listening to this song is not to focus on the vocals, but to focus on the overall music itself. That's the feeling I'm trying to have people feel when they listen to this beat. Because this is like atmospheric music. This is deep house. You can be listening to this music while you're doing something else, but it doesn't like take your attention into like listening to, what is this vocal trying to say to me? No. It's just supposed to be there like any other instrument, just accompanying everything. The last tip that I want to give to you before we move on is, you see I didn't even use like a lot of effects on most of these tracks, and I did that because of this last tip that I want to share with you. The last tip is don't mix through guessing. That's what a lot of new producers do. They mix through guesses. So they just throw in a lot of effects on these channels without actually knowing what they're doing and trying to change sounds and just, stacking a lot of effects. Sometimes not doing anything to a sound is better than adding a lot of effects that you're not knowing what they are doing, because you're actually worsening a sound more than making it better. Don't do stuff through guessing. Don't add a compressor if you're not really understanding what the compressor is doing. Don't add like a chorus or any other sound if you're not really understanding what that is doing, because you want to make repeatable processes that you can keep doing in your mixes so that your music can continuously sound good, so that stuff doesn't happen by accident. So do things without guessing, or otherwise don't do anything. Just make sure you level everything, because most of these sounds, they do have effects, they do have reverbs, they do have phasers, they do have compression from the plugins themselves. So you adding on more on top of those, you might actually be destroying a sound more than you are fixing it in the mix. So just keep that in mind. That's the last tip about mixing before we move to mastering. And another thing that a lot of beginner producers do is that with mastering, they like to also guess. Back to my thing of not guessing. So if you really are not sure of your mastering skills, and if you're not really good at mastering, try not to use guesswork. Sometimes just adding a limiter and adding volume to the track can be good enough to the track, as long as it sounds good, as long as the track is sounding nice. It's a nice composition, one, and you also have a nice mix. You don't even have to do much on the master. Another thing that I like to recommend a lot of beginner producers to do is to use services like Landr. And Landr is a sponsor of this video, but I wanted to add them onto this video so that I can show you that it's easy to use their service, and it's super easy. And I've been using it for mastering for some of my tracks, and it's super easy. So what you do is you just have to export your track as it is, and make sure that you leave a little bit of headroom on the track so that you're not like uploading a track that is super loud. You just leave a little bit of like a -3 dB or -6 dB of headroom, and then you go on Landr. So the Landr pricing is super simple. You just go on prices, and then you can check out all their prices here. They offer a lot of different things on their website. So they offer mastering, distribution. They also have samples, and they have a plugin called Chromatic. I've made a video about that before, and they also have a session section as well. But what you can do is the best value one you can see here is called Landr Studio. So you can pay monthly, and you can see here that these are the prices. There's a $24.99 or $14.99, and at $12.50. So you can choose whichever plan that you want. But the most popular one is the annual one. That's annual and billed monthly for $14.99, so that you can have all this kind of stuff. So if I come here to mastering, just have to click on master, and then it's going to open over here, and you can see some of the stuff that I have mastered here, and it also shows you stuff that has been shared with you if you go to share with me. So you come here to new, and I can just click on master, and then I'm going to pick this one track. So I just called it like Landr mastering. So right now it's uploading it, as you can see right there, and it's super quick. So now it's going to listen to it. So remember, Landr is not adding a mastering preset to your track. It is actually listening to the track, and then it's detecting what's going on, is detecting like the frequencies, like the dynamic range, and all the other processes that you might not be able to detect yourself. It's actually doing it all that for you within itself, and then now it's building a custom plugin chain for the effects that are going to be added to this master, so that it applies a certain master that you could never get on your own. So if you're starting out, don't guess. You can try out Landr. I have a link down below that you can use to try out Landr, and I also have a 30% off discount that you can use. That's down below while it's still doing this, that you can use down below if you want to try out Landr. I implore you to stop guessing. But if you want to release your music or your beats, try out Landr so that it can do a better job for you until you actually get to a point where you can do your own mastering. Or if you're fine with just the Landr masters, you can just continue using Landr. It's totally fine. Landr is the best at online mastering and that kind of thing. So go ahead and try it out for yourself. So now the preview is completed. So now I can go on listen, and then it's going to open this window here. So if you notice this window here, there's a big like play circle, which is a play button, and then there's the toggle between original and master, and there's a volume match, so that you're not fooled by just like a change in volume. This is actually a good thing to add on there, because sometimes most people think that when something is loud it sounds better, but that's why you want to have a volume match, so that you can properly hear at the same volume what's really happening to the track. And then you also have, if you scroll down here, you see that they have the styles, and you can choose the loudness, and you also have reference, where you can actually upload a reference track, and then you can it can like master from using a reference, like it can take from a reference. But right now what we're gonna do, we're just gonna listen to this.
This is me. You wanna know why I know?
So this is the original,
Because I stole a suit.
and this is the master.
And I was in jail.
Okay, so I'm just gonna use the volume match, and I'm gonna start here by the original.
I stole myself out of every good job since high school. And I never got anywhere. You blew me so far out of there. I can never stand taking orders from anybody.
Okay, I can totally hear the difference right there. So I'm gonna turn off volume match, And what you can do is you can pick between these styles. So if you want it more open,
That's whose fault it is. This is
if you want it warm, if you want it balanced,
You want to know why
I think I like the open.
I had no address for 3 months? It's 'cause I
So this
stole
is
a
low
CD in
loudness,
Kansas City, and I was in jail.
medium, and high. I think I'm okay right here by medium. And then if I'm happy with everything that I've selected here, I can just say create master, and then it will ask me like, you know, which format I want. And I can also show other formats. So there's MP3 and HD wave. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna like use just the wave, and I'm just gonna create a wave master, and then it's gonna create, and then I can see the process. So now it's adding on the mastering to the track. So now it's done mastering. Now I can say listen, and then it's gonna open this page here.
What you are and what
And again, you can like toggle where exactly you want to listen, and then you can switch from the original. You can see the wave changed right here on original, and on the master, it looks different, and you can actually see the difference. This is so cool. This looks amazing. Like I can literally see the difference in the wave itself. And if you look down here, there is like different buttons that you can press here. So what you can do is you can revise, you can get mixed feedback, you can release it, you can download it, and there's also more like if you just want to remove it. But the one thing I like is that you can also revise. Like if I click revise, it can open. If you want to revise, if you're not really happy with the master that you've gotten, and there's a lot of stuff that comes up here. So how is the loudness? It asks you questions. So was it too quiet, or was it good, or was it too loud? Then you have to like tell it what happened. Do you want to enable the distortion filter? So no or yes. So that's up to you. And how is the EQ intensity? Was it too low or was it too high? Then, you know, it's questions. This is like the questions that when you're working with like a mastering engineer, these are the questions and the things that you want to let them know, like what's really happening, so that, you know, they can know how to revise and know what to change. So that's what you want to do. And also when you come down to like adjusting the EQ, the lows are, so you now have to fill in what you're feeling the lows are. Are they good? Are they boomy? Are they thin? So that it knows what to add. The mids are muddy. Are they weak? And they're using proper musical terms here. And the highs are harsh or dull, or they're good, or the vocals are nasal or muted, depending with, you know, what you are feeling like. So you can select and pick exactly what you're feeling like. And this is awesome. This is like basically working with a human being. And also adjust the sibilance control. Like how much additional sibilance control do you want to apply? Sibilance is basically like high frequencies in essence. So do you want to have a like light sibilance control, or do you want it heavy? If the track is too bright, what do you want to add? Where would you like to control the sibilance, like high voices or low voices or full? It's up to you. And you can also adjust the stereo field, expand width. If you want it to be super wide, or you can say yes, or you can say focus on center, yes or no. That's up to you. And then you hit revise master, or you can actually listen to your unrevised master, so that you can kind of listen to it as you fill in this whole thing. So you can be playing back. You can be playing the track back as you're listening, like the unrevised master, before you actually revise the master and start the whole process again. So Landr is super dope. So I would say rather do this than take a guess in your own DAW. That's just what I would say, because when you now go into your DAW, like if you're going to your master, now you're just going to be throwing in plugins, not knowing exactly what you're doing. So make sure to use my code down below and use it. And again, don't use guesswork. So hopefully these tips will really help you. If you have any further questions, make sure to drop them down below. If you want to see more in-depth mixing and mastering videos, you can also check out some of my mixing and mastering videos. I'll put something right here on the screen so you can check out those videos. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe down below and leave this video a like, and I'll see you in the next one. And thank you again to Landr for sponsoring this video, and I'll see you in the next one. I'm X, and I'm out. Peace.